Welcome to our review on purifying water. First thing that they like to ask you, particularly on the foundation paper, is what the water sources actually are. And when we're thinking about our typical water sources, particularly in the United Kingdom, then we've got reservoirs, lakes, rivers and aquifers. Now normally they'd be asking you for one or two of these, so if you remember three, you're guaranteed top marks on that question. So in terms of what we actually use our water for then, we've got three key uses that we need to remember. First one is that it's a really good solvent, and that just means that we can use water to dissolve a range of other substances. Second one is that we use it as a coolant. So in things like power stations and many mechanical processes, we'll use this water to stop machinery from overheating. And finally, it's a really rather cheap raw material. So we'll use it in a whole range of different chemical processes as one of the raw materials for the whole thing, because it's cheap. If we think about the water that we get from those water sources, we're not really going to wander up and start drinking from a river. It wouldn't be the best idea, because in addition to all the things that we can see, like leaves and twigs and so on, then there'll be things we can't see, things like microbes, nitrates if there's for farmers' fields nearby from the fertilizers. If it's gone through any old lead pipes, then we could have some lead compounds present. If we've got farmers' fields nearby, again we could have some pesticides as a result of crop spraying. And finally, there will also be dissolved salts and minerals present from where the water has just transferred through different soil and rock. The process by which we're going to purify our water then has three key stages to it. So the first one is filtration, and this is where we're going to remove any large suspended particles, so things like twigs and so on. Second stage is the sedimentation stage, which is going to remove any small suspended particles like clay by allowing it to sink to the very bottom. And then finally, the third stage is the chlorination stage, which is where we'll add chlorine gas to the water, and that will then kill the microbes that are present in it. We do need to remember though that some soluble substances wouldn't be removed during this purification process. So because of that, all the water that we create actually then has further tests to check to see how many of these other substances are present and in what quantities. Some of them are actually quite poisonous to humans, therefore we need to check the water to make sure that they're in safe quantities. If they're not, then obviously we won't be releasing that water for general human consumption. One other way that we can actually make very pure water is by using seawater. But to use seawater, we've obviously got to remove all of the salt from it. And we do that through a process called distillation. Now, obviously this does give us very pure water, and we've got a lot of seawater around. But the downside is it requires an awful lot of energy to do this distillation process. So as a result of that, it's not really a good way to generate large amounts of pure water for drinking, because we'd be using such a phenomenal amount of energy to do so, it would make the water then incredibly expensive.